Julian Assange was released from prison yesterday after being granted bail by the High Court in London. You may know the story of the WikiLeaks founder and editor-in-chief, who paid the price of his own freedom for publishing groundbreaking stories of government corruption and human rights abuses. But many don't know that Julian Assange was an earlier supporter and advocate for Bitcoin. Today, we dive into Julian Assange's history of using Bitcoin as freedom money and as a censorship tool for truth, and why in 2014 he called it the most exciting development on the internet. Welcome to Bitcoin Daily. I'm Dante Cook, head of Swan Business. Over 5 years ago, Julian Assange, an Australian national, was indicted by a federal grand jury in Virginia for collecting and disseminating classified documents and information about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq through his website, WikiLeaks. Many people know Julian Assange as a husband, a father to children who is only known behind prison bars, a journalist, a cryptographer, the founder of WikiLeaks, which in addition to exposing information about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, also leaked Hillary Clinton emails in the 2016 presidential election race. But what we want to focus on today is Julian Assange as the Bitcoiner and the proponent of freedom money. In 1995, we were already beginning to see the streaks of rebellion in the 24-year-old Julian Assange, who was arrested and charged for 24 counts of hacking in his home country, Australia. He pleaded guilty to the 24 counts of hacking in exchange for not doing it again in the future. And although he wouldn't be tried for hacking again until years later, the rebellious streak never left the rebel. In 2006, he launched WikiLeaks, a place for leakers to share classified documents and information. And the site was really useful for people who were into that kind of thing, hackers, people that were looking down rabbit holes into conspiracy theories and whatnot. But the site's trajectory would change forever when in 2010, there was a video shown of a helicopter killing 11 civilians, including 2 journalists, during the Iraq War. This opened the world's eyes into how the war on terror was actually being fought. And that was just the beginning. Just a few weeks later, 91,000 classified documents were released on the Iraq War. And the documents were titled the Afghan War Diary. This sparked a media storm and a frenzy around the site. People couldn't believe some of the things that they were seeing, and more importantly, the things that they were reading about what was actually going on during the Afghan and Iraq War. Not too long after that, more documents were released called the War Log, and this time it was over 400,000 documents. Soon after that, rape allegations and allegations of sexual misconduct were filed against Assange in Sweden. And shortly after that, he was deplatformed as the WikiLeaks site was unable to accept payments from PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, and had their assets frozen in Swiss banks. And this is where Julian Assange's story intersects with Bitcoin. Some early developers in the Bitcoin forums were recommending that WikiLeaks would use a tool like Bitcoin as uncensored money as a way to accept donations on their site. This caught the strong discouragement of Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's founder. With very few nodes, not many miners, not very many users, and Bitcoin's price being at less than $10 per coin, Satoshi was worried that attention like this could break the project in its infancy, which was just over a year and a half old at the time. And throwing fuel to the fire, in December of 2010, PC World launched this article saying that WikiLeaks could use a potential new virtual currency called Bitcoin as a way of getting around sanctions and being deplatformed. Many people believe that this prompted the exodus of Bitcoin's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, who said that Assange and WikiLeaks had kicked the hornet's nest, and now the swarm is coming for us. This was one of the last messages that we would see from Satoshi Nakamoto. 6 months later, in June of 2011, WikiLeaks posted their first Bitcoin address. This was one of the most high-profile use cases and public use cases of people using Bitcoin as freedom money, as money that couldn't be censored. Though some people saw it as just a tool for accepting donations. Remember, Assange was a cryptographer, a talented hacker and developer himself, so he knew that the tool represented more than just a means for accepting donations and payments online. Assange, just a few years later, cited Bitcoin as the most interesting intellectual development on the internet in the last 5 years.
Right now, the most interesting thing happening is Bitcoin. It's probably the most interesting intellectual development on the internet in the last 5 years.
Can you talk about Bitcoin a bit for people?
Sure. Okay, so a lot of people will have heard about Bitcoin but not really understand it. So you think, okay, it's some online currency, what's the big deal? There's, you can have a PayPal account, or that's kind of like an online currency, or even your Visa card. Well, actually all the processing occurs online. Isn't that really like an online currency? Or you can buy gold, that's kind of like an online currency. Bitcoin is different because it is a currency that cryptographically backed, multi-jurisdictional, which means that it's very hard for any one power group in any particular jurisdiction to start turning it into a rent-seeking apparatus. The underlying technology of Bitcoin is cryptography on the one hand, and the ability for cryptography to create situations that can defend itself or the people who use it against even the full might of a superpower. A full might of a superpower doesn't help you smash a mass problem. A mass problem is a mass problem, and it's something that is connected to the existence of intelligence in the universe or basic physics. It's not something you can get at simply through overwhelming coercive power or lots of people. And the other component of Bitcoin, the other underlying basic technology, is proof of publication at a particular time. And we've never really had that. Because Bitcoin, in its underlying technology, breaks Orwell's dictum. It breaks Orwell's dictum by providing proof of publishing at a certain time. And that is the intellectual underpinning of that whole system, and can be used for lots and lots of other things. And so that's the big expansion we're about to see in Bitcoin. All derives from this basic premise that you can prove that a particular statement, a particular consensus, a particular contract happened at a particular time globally. And it requires the subversion of every single jurisdiction where people are running Bitcoin to overturn that.
Assange used Bitcoin as more than just a means for accepting payments. At times, he even used Bitcoin as a messaging service, a way to prove that he was alive, or as a way to timestamp messages on the blockchain so that they couldn't be manipulated or changed after the fact. And finally, after a 14-year battle, Assange has finally gotten his freedom. Just yesterday, Assange and the US government reached a plea deal, which says that Assange would serve more than 5 years in prison, which he's already served at this point. Why do we share his story? What do we make of his imprisonment? Here's a person who was charged as a criminal and a terrorist for simply revealing factual documents about how the government was actually operating during the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The only way that he could defend himself was through mathematics and cryptography. We talk a lot about the power of the Bitcoin network and why the hash rate is so important. Bitcoin nodes and miners running all across the world aren't just silly computers that are just consuming energy with no point or no purpose. They're freedom fighters. They're freedom protectors, keeping a ledger or a blockchain or timestamps of the truth of what actually happened. That can't be forged, that can't be changed, that can't use the power of force to simply change the outcome or imprison people who say something that you don't agree with. In a world where factual events can be deleted, erased, removed, or kept from us, don't you want a tool that exposes the truth? This is why Julian Assange's story is so important. And this is why we believe Bitcoin is so important at Swan. We believe that Bitcoin represents a beacon of hope in this politically and economically divisive environment that we find ourselves in today. And that's why we're doing something no other California-based company is doing, no small startup is doing, no other Bitcoin company is doing. We're jumping into the political conversation in hopes of bringing the message of freedom money and Bitcoin to millions of people. That's why we became a sponsor of the Tucker Carlson Live Tour. We're not aligned on party. We're aligned on freedom. we're aligned on Bitcoin. And as a way to prove that we're all about freedom money, we're doing a special promotion. We're giving people a chance to win a Bitcoin. We're going to give freedom money to a lucky contestant who downloads the Swan app, creates an account, completes our onboarding, which takes 2 minutes or less, and then adds a payment method or a bank account to their account. That's all that you need to do. This promotion is available to non-Swan customers and existing Swan customers, but more information and details will come out about how existing Swan customers can enter. So if you'd like to enter, please go to swan.com/winabitcoin. Swan, like Julian Assange, and many of you who watch this show every single day, believe in freedom and freedom money. And with that, we're signing off for today. This is Dante Cook with Swan.com. Happy stacking.